恭敬大德善听，为此法会集切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊真无生。Well, the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, slanting life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back. This is lecture number 124. Today we are going to continue about developing loving kindness. There are many ways to develop loving kindness. We are going to try to cover all of them because hopefully by now you realize how important loving kindness is. And this week we are continuing how to feel good about yourself through the practice of mindfulness of the Dharma. All right. Okay. And all right, let's continue. I won't do a recap about last week because it's all on YouTube. But what I would say is Ron has asked a very sophisticated question In the chat box, it says, in the Untitled Sutra, it says, if man or woman hear this Buddha's name, which is a Buddha named boundless body, does come one, and have a momentary thought of respect, those people will overstep the heavy offenses involved in birth and death for 40 eons. So Ron's question is, can hearing the Buddha's name be hearing oneself read the name? That means you hear your own voice. And what does a thought of respect mean? And does overstep heavy offenses means one's karmic retributions are wiped away? So that's a very good question. I'm so very happy to see James online with us. Haven't seen James for a while. I know James is working with DRBU, I think, the last time I checked with him. And because DRBU, I still do some work for DRBU, not serious work, fun work. I was thinking about James just about 2 weeks ago, so I'm glad to see him with us. Okay, mindfulness of the Dharma. What I have to share with you is how you say, this is the standard thing when people talk about mindfulness of the Dharma and why you should be happy or glad that you're all here for the Dharma. So this is from a text called The Path of Purification. I think it's the Visuddhi Magga. It says, when the meditator, that means all of us, recollects the special qualities of the Dharma, his mind is not invaded by greed, nor by hate, nor by delusion. So Shufu talks about this. He says, when you cheat, sorry, I beg your pardon. He says, when you sit and chant meditation, it's a very pure practice. So this is what it means. So it says, he has a right state of mind being inspired by the Dharma. And when he has suppressed the hindrances, the dhyana or jhana, the dhyana factors arise in a single mind moment. But because of the profundity of the special qualities of the Dharma, or because of his being engrossed in recollecting special qualities of various kinds, that means, for example, like generating loving kindness, all right? The dhyana he attains is, actually it shouldn't be only, but is only compared comparatively to the other levels of dhyana. So the dhyana he attains is access concentration without reaching absorption concentration yet. At this point, I would like to point out, sometimes in the past, I've spoken about Shufu saying in the first dhyana, the breathing stops. And then there was an instance when I was a bit confused. And I think Ru Chang, is she online with us today? No, she's not. I think it was her or someone else. She corrected, she said that it was the pulse that stops in the first dhyana, according to Shufu. And actually, it depends on which source you go to. I think in the Lotus Sutra and a few other texts, Shufu will say the pulse stops in the first dhyana, then in the second dhyana, the breathing stops. But in other texts, for example, I think in the Untitled Sutra is reverse. So it's not fixed. All right. Okay. So I just wanted to put that up. Okay. Moving on. When a bhikkhu is devoted to this recollection of the Dharma, seeing the Dharma's special qualities in this way, he is respectful and differential towards the master. Master here can mean Shufu, or the person you have taken refuge with. It can mean the Buddha. In the context of this text, it means the Buddha. Yes, it says, he entertains great reverence for the Dharma and attains fullness of faith, and so on. He has much happiness and gladness. There you go. That's where your loving kindness comes from. He conquers fear and dread. He is able to endure pain. He comes to feel as if he were living in the Dharma's presence. And his body, when the recollection of the Dharma's special qualities dwells in it, becomes as worthy of veneration as a shrine room. So your body becomes the monastery, becomes the temple. Actually, that's what Bodhidharma says as well. Bodhidharma, when he talks about the practice of circumambulating in the Buddha hall, for example, he says it's a practice that's meant to bring you back to the actual practice of circulating your awareness around your body. And your body is the Bodhi Mandala. That's according to Bodhidharma. Okay. So let me see, this is the last slide from this path of purification. It says his mind, that means the meditator or the practitioner, or all of us when we recollect the Dharma, it says his mind tends towards the realization of the peerless Dharma. When he encounters an opportunity for transgression, he has vivid awareness of conscience and shame on recollecting the well-regulatedness, is that a real word? The well-regulatedness of the Dharma. And if he penetrates no higher, he is at least headed for a happy destiny. Okay, worst case scenario, you ascend to the heavens. Worst case. So there's a verse says, now when a man is truly wise, or a woman, his constant task will surely be this recollection of the Dharma blessed with such mighty potency. Okay. I'm sure the author who translated this verse had a lot of fun. Okay, now where are we? Continuing from last week. We have already covered 1 to 3. The Dharma is skillfully presented, obtaining its retribution in the present lifetime, the benefits of the Dharma. The Dharma is without torment or burning. Today, we're going to look at number 4. The Dharma is independent of time. What does that mean? Dharma is independent of time. Okay. There is a very famous verse that is, let me see, this not much. Yes, this is recited, I think, daily in the Theravada monasteries like Abhayagiri. It says, the Dharma is well expounded by the Blessed One, visible here now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading inwards to be experienced directly by the wise. This is known as the 6 special qualities of the Dharma. Okay, so well expounded. We already covered this. Let me see, 1, 2, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago. Was that right? It basically it is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, and then Shofu says it's like honey. Honey has a consistency that's sweet throughout the honey. If you ever chewed honey, you know what it means. Okay, all right. So it says the Dharma is well expounded by the Blessed One. So we already explained what well expounded is. Okay, now let's go to what visible here and now means. Visible here and now, according to the text, it says it means that it can be seen by a noble person himself when he has done away with greed, anger, and ignorance. Noble person means a sage. You have to be at least a stream enterer, first stage arhat. When you are a first stage arhat, okay, and above, then it is visible here and now for you. It is how you say, it's connected to the next quality, which is timeless. What I'm trying to say is that once you have the cause, you have achieved the cause, the effect is direct. Yeah, so it says when greed has been abandoned, he neither thinks for his own affliction, nor thinks for others' affliction, nor thinks for the affliction of both, and he does not experience mental suffering and grief. Okay, no more mental suffering and grief. This is how the Dharma is visible here and now. So we talked about the Heart Sutra last week, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara illuminated the 5 skandhas. He crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty, and let me see, and he crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty, and I can't recall. And I know there's a part that says he leaves this distorted dream thinking behind. This is talking about the same thing. Okay, once you have the proper cause, the effect comes straight away. All right. Okay. Then now we come to the timeless part. What is timeless? Okay, greed, anger, and ignorance is timeless. No matter where you go to the past, you go to the future, no matter what period it is, what world under which Buddha, the characteristics of greed, anger, and ignorance is always there. It's always the same. They share one common flavor. The specifics may be different, but the principles of how greed, anger, and ignorance operates is the same. Okay. And so the mundane consciousness that you find throughout the Saha world and throughout the entire Dharma realm is always conditioned by these three factors. So let me see my notes. So it says the Dharma of the Buddha depends on that causes and conditions be fulfilled. Okay, this is the for people like us who have not got onto emptiness yet. So we are still operating on causes and conditions to be fulfilled, and that's one clue to Ron's question about heavy offenses. Okay, so it says as long as the three elements of the path, which is morality or virtue or precepts, and then samadhi and wisdom, are not perfected, one does not obtain bodhi. But when morality, virtue, samadhi, or concentration and wisdom are perfected, the fruit is attained and does not depend on time. It is also without delay. So again, like the previous one, the previous quality, the moment you achieve it, the fruit is immediate. It's not like you plant a tree, and you want the fruit, there's what you say, like you plant a tomato plant. How long does it take? 3 months? Does it take 3 months for a tomato plant? Or you plant certain trees, it can take, like an avocado tree, it takes you a few years before you can get the avocado fruit. But not the Dharma, not the results of the Dharma. As long as you put in the effort and the causes and right, the conditions will appear. Let me see, did I say that right? If the causes are right, when you create the right conditions, the fruit, yeah, that's more precise. When you create the right conditions, you plant the right causes, you create the right conditions, the fruit is immediate. So it's not like when you make coffee and tea, or tea, you have to boil water, you have to stir, not like that. Yeah, this is more instant than even instant coffee. And the third aspect, okay, of timeless is the perception of time. Anyone who's ever had their mad mind, their monkey mind stop, will realize that time is a construct of the conscious mind. Time is the perception of time. Okay, I'm not talking about cause and effect as in there's a before, a during, and a after, or a sequence of events. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the way we perceive time. The way we perceive time is not a real thing. It depends on the thoughts of our conscious mind. Yeah, it's a condition. The feeling of time, the perception of time is a conditioned phenomena caused by our thoughts rising. Yeah, so it's not how you say, when your mad mind stops, okay, and you sit, you can't really tell how long it has been. You need something to mark the passing of time, like say the ticking of a clock or like water dripping. So when you sit for a long time and you get to that stage, someone will come and say, "Oh, you've been sitting for 5 minutes," and you're like, "Oh, okay, you've been sitting for 5 minutes." If someone says, "No, no, no, you've been sitting for 5 hours," you just agree because you don't really care. It doesn't feeling like 5 minutes or feeling like 5 hours no longer applies to the way you feel, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Next, I have a very interesting story from the Lotus Sutra, from the Dragon Girl, to demonstrate the concept of timeless. All right. Okay. So this is taken from the Lotus Sutra. In this section, Manjushri Bodhisattva says there is a daughter of Dragon King Sagara who is only 8 years old. She is wise and her faculties are sharp. She knows well the propensities, practices, and deeds of living beings. Her three karmas of body, speech, and mind are pure. So in the text it says she has attained Dharani, and this is what it means. Three karmas of body, speech, and mind are pure. And she can fully uphold the extremely profound and esoteric treasury that the Buddhas teach. So she's only 8 years old. Okay, she enters deep meditative concentration and thoroughly understands all dharmas. In the space of a kasana, she brought forth a resolve for bodhi and attained irreversibility. Okay, What is a kasana? If you look at the end, kasana. A kasana is an instant of time. It's a very quick instant of time. How quick? Okay. It is said, Shofu says, you take a flick of a finger, or say like a finger snap. I'm not sure you can hear this. Like that. That's very quick, right? Finger snap. Okay. In one finger snap, there is 64 kasanas. So you take the quickness of a finger snap, you divide it by 64 times. That's how long a kasana is. And someone actually did the math in one of the Theravada texts. Someone converted a kasana, and it says a kasana is 0.001 third of a second. That's how fast a kasana is. But it's actually very long if you think about it, because within a kasana, there are 90 productions and extinctions. And within, I'm not sure if it's within in one production and extinction or in one kasana, but it's such a quick, it doesn't make any difference. In each kasana, let's just say in each kasana, there are 900 thoughts. That's how fast the mind moves. I was having a conversation with my brother the other day, and we're talking about how there are things like people who can tell your fortune, and there's something called the nadi leaves. I've spoken about the nadi leaves before. There's a documentary online, you can look for it. I think it's not National Geographic, it might be National Geographic by some other channel. So the nadi leaves, okay, is a few hundred years ago, or maybe a 1,000 years ago, there's this Indian yogi who meditated, and then he had a state, and he then got his followers to inscribe people's fortunes on palm leaves known as the nadi leaves. So I know someone when I was in Berkeley Monastery. This person is he's Indian, but I think he was raised in I'm not sure he was born in the United States, but he was definitely raised in the States. So this is a person who told me about his experience with the nadi leaves. So the nadi leaves is a collection of people's fortunes, where what happens is you go to a particular village, because the leaves are controlled by a particular clan. Let me see, is clan the right word? A particular clan. And what they do is they preserve the nadi leaves, because the leaves don't last forever, so they continually copy onto fresh leaves. So what happens is this: the process is you get an interpreter, because they speak a local dialect. They ask you certain questions, and they have the leaves are categorized through an index system, where through a first round of questions, they come back with a certain set of leaves, and they ask you another set of questions to further narrow down which set of leaves belong to you. So it is said that your name is on the leaf. Not everyone's fortune is there, but chances are your name, when they translate your name into their local dialect, your name is actually written on the leaf. And then he told me that, let me see what he said. He said that I wasn't planning on telling this story. This just came to mind. Let me see. The name of his wife was also written on the leaf when they were married. A lot of details that were recorded down hundreds of years ago, but spelling out his actual life in great detail. So I was having a conversation with my brother or my brothers, and we were talking about how if the Buddha taught us karma in order for us to be in control, then how do you explain the existence of things like this, like astrology, the nadi leaves? And so if you meditate to the point, okay, where your mad mind stops and you can see your thoughts arising, then at that moment, at that space in time, within this 900 thoughts that slows down, you have the space to be in control. If not, if you don't have that skill, that is why it is so hard to change our karma and to practice, because it happens so quickly. Our karmic habits arise so quickly that we follow after our karma without even realizing it. Okay, so I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. There's a fine line between um, pre predestined, is that the right word? Was like our fate is kind of sealed, like a leopard can't change his spots, and how to get in control. Yeah, you could also call it the sudden and the gradual. All right. So anyway, okay, that's just an interesting side story. Okay, coming back to the Lotus Sutra. Manjushri Bodhisattva talks about this dragon girl some more. He says, her eloquence is unobstructed. She is compassionately mindful of all living beings as if they were her own children. Her merit and virtue are perfect. What she thinks and what she says is subtle, wonderful, and vast. Kind, compassionate, human, and yielding, she has a gentle and refined temperament and can thus arrive at Bodhi. See how different the Dharma is, the sutras is, compared to most literature? In the Dharma, in the sutras, all these wholesome, nice qualities that you would want in your best friend, in your parents, in all the people that you meet, these are great heroes. You know, it's not heroic means all these wholesome qualities, not how you say brave to the point of stupidity. The difference between being brave and being stupid is in the timing. That's what people say. You know, it does not involve violence. It does not involve oppressing other people, you know, or killing for what you believe in. Yeah, it's very different. Dhamma is very different. Okay, moving on. There's someone else in the audience, okay, who does not really believe, says what Manjushri Bodhisattva is saying. He says, and his name is Wisdom Accumulation Bodhisattva. And he says, I have seen Tathagata Shakyamuni Buddha, doing difficult ascetic practices for countless eons, accumulating merit as he sought the path of Bodhi without ever resting. I do not see a single place throughout the trichiliocosm, not even one the size of a mustard seed, where this Bodhisattva did not give away his life. He then, for the sake of living beings, attained the path of Bodhi. I do not believe that this girl can realize perfect awakening in an instant. So what he's basically saying is Shakyamuni Buddha became the Buddha by, every single opportunity he had. Basically, you could say that. He says there's no place in the entire world system, not even the size of a mustard seed, where Shakyamuni Buddha has not given away his life to create positive affinities with living beings. So that why in the end he can save you, because you want to listen to Shakyamuni Buddha. So it says that's how he became a Buddha. How can this girl realize perfect awakening in an instant, right? Because it is said that to become a Buddha, you need 3 Ashamkaya eons of perfecting the practices. That's a very long time. And before this Bodhisattva could finish speaking, the daughter of the Dragon King suddenly appeared before them, bowed her head at their feet, withdrew to one side, and spoke these verses in praise. She says, having deeply understood the characteristics of offenses and blessings, the Buddha illuminates the 10 directions. His exquisitely wondrous pure Dharma body is replete with the 32 hallmarks. So she praises the Buddha. And then she continues praising the Buddha. Let me see, now it's 10, 15. I have a lot to cover for this week because of Ron's question from last week. So you can see her further praises of the Buddha. And if you want to know more, please go read the Lotus Sutra for yourself. Okay. So what she says at the end is, I have also heard that one's realization of Bodhi can only be known and confirmed by the Buddha. I expound the great vehicle teachings to liberate suffering living beings. Okay, so that's her response. And after her response, okay, Shariputra then says to the dragon girl, says, you claim quick attainment of the supreme path. This is difficult to believe. Why? Then it says, the body of a female is unclean, not a fit vessel for the Dharma. Okay, that is very, very brave, or Shariputra. According to Shofu, okay, a lot of questions are asked in the sutras. It is not because the person who asked the question does not know, but they ask on behalf of all living beings, because they know either you have a question, you don't know even how to ask, or you are afraid to ask. For example, like now, asking a very brave question. So it says, the body of a female is unclean, not a fit vessel for the Dharma. How can you attain supreme bodhi? The path to Buddhahood is remote. Only after one has passed through countless eons diligently accumulating merit by performing good deeds and perfecting the cultivation of all paramitas can one attain realization. And that's not enough for Venerable Shariputra. He even has more to say. So it says, what is more? What is more, one in a female body has 5 obstacles. 1, she cannot become a Brahma. 2, she cannot become a Shakra. 3, she cannot become a Mara king. 4, she cannot become a wheel-turning sage king. And 5, she cannot become a Buddha. How can a female quickly realize Buddhahood? So I guess maybe cancel culture was not around at that time. So anyway, Sutra goes on and says, then the dragon girl held up a precious bowl equal in worth to the trichiliocosm and presented it to the Buddha. The Buddha accepted it. Okay. So Ron asks, what chapter or Lotus Sutra does this story come from? Ron, you should tell me. Okay. Go get the Lotus Sutra and find out. Okay. All right. Then the dragon girl said to wisdom accumulation Bodhisattva and Venerable Sariputra, she said, I offered this precious bowl, and a world-honored one, meaning Shakyamuni Buddha, accepted it. Was that quick or not? And he said, very quick. And the girl said, with your spiritual powers, watch as I become a Buddha even more quickly than that. At that moment, the entire assembly saw the dragon girl suddenly turn into a man and perfect the Bodhisattva practices. Immediately, she went off to the south to the world stainless, where seated on a jewel lotus, she realized complete, perfect awakening, the 32 hallmarks, and the 80 subsidiary characteristics. These are physical characteristics of the body of a Buddha that is that you get from virtuous practices. And she taught the wonderful Dharma to all living beings throughout the 10 directions. So this is an example of timeless. Once you cross a certain threshold, once you are no longer in the conditioned world, you may be operating in the conditioned world, but the conditioned world does not bind you anymore. Time takes on a different meaning. Okay. All right. So let me see, what's the time? This interchange between Shariputra and the dragon girl is reminds me of, there's another sutra called the Vimala Kati Sutra. And in case Ron asks what chapter that is from, that's chapter 7, not the Lotus Sutra chapter 7, but Vimala Kati Sutra chapter 7, where also Manjushri Bodhisattva was involved. And the context is this: Manjushri Bodhisattva is going to pay Vimalakati a visit. And he does this after the Buddha asked many of his Arhat disciples to go pay Vimalakati a visit, and they all decline. Vimalakati in this sutra is a lay person. They all decline because they say that Vimalakati's wisdom is so much greater than theirs, and every time they talk to Vimalakati, they get humbled because Vimalakati asks them questions and they cannot answer. So in the end, Manjushri Bodhisattva, being the wisest of them all, has no choice. He said, okay, he'll go. And when he goes, apparently, everyone wants to see what will happen? Because Vimalakirti is known for as a bodhisattva for being very wise, and Manjushri Bodhisattva is known as foremost in wisdom among all the bodhisattvas. So they thought a great show would happen. So they all went, including Venerable Shariputra. And when they were all in Vimalakirti's room, which was a very small room, the sutta describes as they could all fit because Vimalakirti expanded the room. So there's a goddess in the room, okay? And when she saw everyone listening to the Dharma, she felt really happy. So she wanted to make offerings. So she made herself visible and she started scattering heavenly flowers over the bodhisattvas and the great disciples of the Buddha, like Venerable Shariputra. It is said that when the flowers touched the bodhisattvas, they didn't stick to the bodhisattva, they just fell to the ground. But when the flowers scattered onto the arahats, they stuck to the arahats. They could not fall off. So even after using their spiritual powers, they could not remove the flowers. So the goddess singled out Venerable Shariputra and said, "Why are you trying to remove the flowers?" So Venerable Shariputra answered, "Oh, these flowers are contrary to the Dharma, so I will remove them because monks, we don't adorn ourselves. So having flowers as a monk is like a faux pas in, is that how you pronounce it? Faux pas in fashion? Yeah, we just wear our sash, that's it." So the goddess said, "Do not say that these flowers are contrary to the Dharma." Why? It says the flowers have no discrimination, and it is only you who are generating discriminative thoughts. The flowers themselves are pure, it's just a flower. And then she says, if one who has left home in the Dharma has discrimination, this is contrary to the Dharma. And if one is without discrimination, then one is in accord with the Dharma. Then she pointed out to the Bodhisattvas as an example to state her point. She says, look at the Bodhisattvas. The flowers don't stick to them because they have eradicated all discriminative thoughts. So then Venerable Shariputra asked the goddess, which of the three vehicles do you seek? Then, meaning, are you for us, it would be the equivalent of, or the same thing as, are you a Theravada Buddhist? Are you a Mahayana Buddhist? Or are you in the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle? So her reply was, since I convert sentient beings with the Shravaka Dharma is a sound hearer Dharma, meaning the Pali canon. She says, I'm a Shravaka. And she says, since I convert sentient beings with the Dharma of causality, I am a Pratyeka Buddha. That means she talks about the 12 conditioned links. And then she says, since I convert sentient beings with the Dharma of great compassion, I am a Mahayanist. Then Shariputra said, why do you not transform your female body? Okay, again, Shariputra is being very brave. Meaning, if you're so great, why are you in the form of a female body? Okay. Then the goddess said, for the past 12 years, I have sought the characteristic of being female and I have comprehended it to be unattainable. Okay. Why should I transform it? You all get what she means? She says it is as if a magician has created a female, a mirage of a female. Okay. What do you call it? A hologram. Okay. If someone asks her, why do you not transform your female body? Would that person's question be appropriate or not? It's not, because why? That body is not real. It's just a hologram. It's a CGI computer generated image. Yeah, it's just a graphic. So how can you ask? It's not real. So so Shariputra agreed. He said it would not. An indeterminate characteristic that has been conjured, that means a hologram, why should it be transformed? It's not real. Why pay that much attention to it? So the goddess replied, all dharmas are also like this, meaning even the form of the female body. So then she said, why? So why do you ask, why should I transform my female body? And you know what she did next? What she did next is actually very funny. What she did next, okay, was she changed Shariputra's body to be like hers. That means she transformed Shariputra into a woman. And at the same time, she transformed herself to look like Shariputra. So they changed places. It's like that movie. Isn't there a movie from a long time ago where this man went to sleep and he woke up in a woman's body, or the opposite thing happened, or they switched bodies? Yeah, I think it was Tom Hanks, right? So anyway, so she transformed Shariputra into her, and she occupied Shariputra, or her body became like Shariputra. And then she asked Venerable Shariputra, says, why do you not transform this female body? And Shariputra, totally helpless, answered, I do not know how you transform me into this female body, and he doesn't know how to transform himself back. Then the goddess, having proven her point, said, Shariputra, if you were able to transform this female body, then all females will also be able to transform themselves. Just as Shariputra is not female, but is manifesting a female body, so are all females likewise. So, meaning in one lifetime you may be female, but not in the next. And the males in this lifetime who take pride in having a male body, if you ever do that, in your past life you might have been female, or in your next life you could be female again. So she says, although they manifest female bodies, they are not female. Therefore, the Buddha has explained that all dharmas are neither male nor female. So these are just conditioned dharmas. These are just ever-changing characteristics that are impermanent. So we shouldn't hold on to it. Okay, let me see, 10:30. Okay, what I have next actually is the rest of it, which is encouraging investigation. It means come and see this Dharma for yourself, meaning it is inviting of inspection. And why is it inviting of inspection? Because it's a really wholesome thing, and because it exists. If it doesn't exist, you can't say, that's what the commentary says. Commentary says, if it doesn't exist, you can't invite someone to come and see it. And because this is very profound, it says, it is as pure as a full moon's disk in a cloudless sky, or as a gem of pure water on bleached cloth. It is inviting of inspection. So it's a very good thing. So you want people to inspect. And let me see. The next quality is leading inwards. Let me see what leading inwards means. Says it's worth inducing or arousing in one's own mind by means of development, without any question of whether or not one's clothing or one's head is on fire. Basically, it just means that you feel motivated to do it. You don't feel like you have to. You don't feel like someone's forcing you, or that by doing it you're a good Buddhist, then the Buddha will praise you. There's a very natural tendency, a vigor, almost like an excitement, and not anticipation, eagerness. Yeah, eagerness, I think, is the right word. It's like when you have something that you like to do, like a hobby, or something that you enjoy doing, and you just have a disposition towards wanting to do it. Yeah, that's how it feels like. This part of leading inwards, it makes you want to how you say, just focus on yourself and disregard all the distractions of the world. Yeah, and ultimately you do it because you realize of the benefits it provides as a shelter. Like I said, against the outside world, it shelters you. It brings you to a better place. And then finally, we have this called the last quality, known as to be experienced directly by the wise. Provided you know the proper Dharma and you know what is proper practice, the wise can experience it. So hence the word wise, not fools. Okay. If you are a fool, you'll be like in the Shurangama Sutra, where the Buddha talks about cooking sand, hoping to get rice. If you practice wrongly, you practice blindly, and this has to do with Ron's question. The Buddha said, if you haven't eliminated desire, so that's one way of practicing wrongly. You don't have the right foundation. No matter how much you put in, it's like boiling sand, cooking sand, hoping to get rice. No matter how vigorous you are, no matter how concentrated you are, after a million eons, your sand will still be sand. It's not going to change into rice. Okay, all right, unless you are Chan Master Lungku or Chan Master Dragon Pants. Okay, Chan Master Dragon Pants at first didn't know how to practice, and he worked very hard at trying to practice, but he didn't know how to practice. At this point, I am not sure if his working hard was like manual labor in the monastery, or he worked really hard at actual practices, but he didn't know how to apply his mind. Anyway, he didn't know. And then one day he met a monk and he asked the monk how to practice. So this monk taught him the Huato method. And he was very, very good at holding the Huato. And he kept the doubt in his mind the whole day. So why am I talking about Chan Master Dragon Pants? Or I'm not sure what is the intonation for his Chinese name, Lung Ku Dragon Pants. Anyway, he went into seclusion. Okay, and one day he had a visitor who was very hungry. So what he did was this: he went out and he collected pebbles or stones from the ground, and he put them in a pot of boiling water, and then he served them. He served the pebbles or the rocks to his guests. But when he served them, it was not rocks anymore. It was actually very delicious potatoes. And he said, "Oh, I would appreciate it if you don't tell anyone about me being able to turn pebbles into potatoes." So that's Chan Master Lungku. Okay, he's the one. So this was during the Ming Dynasty, and he saved the mother of Emperor Wan Li. I'll tell you the rest of the story later when I get to Ron's question. So Ron's question, I think it was last week, was this. He says, is cultivating the way correctly means adhering to the 5 precepts and doing the 10 good deeds, or is there something more? And Ron quoted Shufu. What did Shufu say? That Ron quoted. Okay. Here's what Shufu says from the Lotus Sutra commentary. Ron, you must tell me what chapter you got this from from Shufu's commentary in the Lotus Sutra. So I'm asking Ron back. Okay. So basically, what is what Shufu said? Shufu said, you must approach your cultivation with wisdom. If you lack wisdom and cultivate blindly while others cultivate towards Buddhahood, you may get off track and end up cultivating yourself into the hells. When you cultivate and find yourself heading closer to the hells, that is a sign that you are cultivating blindly. Okay, I'm not sure what markers you get. Maybe you get nightmares. I'm not sure, but so that's what Shufu says. All right, Shufu goes on to say, says if you practice without understanding, you are cultivating blindly. Okay, so Ron says he got Shufu's quote from the Words of Wisdom email that I take from Jin Yongshi and send out to everyone. Okay, it's actually that comes from the Lotus Sutra, Ron. So Shufu says, if you practice without understanding, you are cultivating blindly. If you want to cultivate, first you must understand how to cultivate. That makes a lot of sense, right? If you want to become a doctor, you can't just say you're a doctor or wear doctor's clothes and have a stethoscope around your neck and say that claim to be a doctor. You have to go to school. You have to go to medical school. You have to spend a lot of time learning, memorizing, and then in training before you can be a qualified doctor. And it's not just doctors, to be engineers, to be architects, to be a lawyer, everything in life, you have to learn. You have to understand. Same goes for monks and nuns and for Buddhists. You can't just follow what you think is what the Buddha is what Buddhism is if you don't know if it's in the sutras. Okay, the Buddha in the Mahaparinibbana Paranibbana Sutta, the last sutra spoken by the Buddha, he said no matter whether it's called the 4 great references. He says no matter if you hear the Dharma from a huge group of monks, a smaller group of monks, a few monks, or one monk, whether they are learned, of great reputation, the Buddha says you have to, he says, don't accept, don't reject, but you have to refer back to the sutras, to the Vinayas, to know if what they are saying is consistent with the Dharma. Okay, meaning you have to know the Dharma for yourself. That's the Buddha's advice to all of us. So Shufu says there are 84,000 Dharma doors. Even if you don't learn all 84,000 of them, you should at least learn 84. If you don't learn 84, even just one Dharma door, you won't know how to walk the path. For example, if you want to travel, you got to prepare some provisions. Understanding is analogous to having the money to buy the ticket, while practicing is the same as actually going on the trip. Okay, you get that metaphor? All right? Okay, because if you don't know what is contained in the sutras, then you're just practicing based on your own belief. You're not, it's not the Buddha's Dharma, it's your Dharma. Okay, it's your whatever cultural conditioning, whatever hermeneutic lens you put on how you see the world or what you think the Dharma is, but you don't know for sure. Okay. Shufu says cultivation works the same way. All right. So I won't read the rest of this slide because it's a bit of a repeat. What Shufu says in the next slide is, therefore, you should always listen to the sutra lectures. Since the sutras were taught by the Buddhas, you should learn the principles that the Buddha taught. Don't assume that you can just cultivate without any understanding of the principles. During the first summer session, I said to one of my disciples, we meditate and we study. In most monasteries, they either focus on meditation and don't study sutras, or focus on studying sutras and don't meditate. In other monasteries, cultivators meditate in the winter and study sutras in the summer. They lecture on the sutras in the summer, but only for 2 hours a day. The remaining hours are often wasted. You know, some monasteries, they don't, Shufu says meditate and study. Some monasteries don't even have meditation or studying. They just do ceremonies, unfortunately, which is a bit dangerous. Why? Okay, I have the next slide. So how do we practice correctly? Okay, how do we understand the Dharma? The answer lies in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, in the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. In the sutra that I just quoted, the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha, in telling a person named Subhada, who wasn't a disciple of the Buddha when he was asking this question, but he did after. Buddha says, Subhada. Okay, so basically, why is the Buddha telling Subhada this? Because the Subhada was very confused. There were a lot of teachers during that time. All had different theories and different principles about the world, about life. So Subhada didn't know what to believe. So Subhada went to ask the Buddha which teaching is the correct teaching. So the Buddha didn't say that, oh, my teaching is the right teaching. Basically, the Buddha told Subhada, he says, in whatever teaching and training the Noble Eightfold Path is not found, there is no ascetic found. No second ascetic, that means second stage arhat. No third stage arhat and no fourth stage arhat, meaning no sages. You won't end birth and death. But in whatever teaching and training the Noble Eightfold Path is found, you will find sages. Okay, so this is also known, the Noble Eightfold Path is also known as the middle way because it avoids extremes. What types of extreme? Okay, let me show you. In order to truly understand right view, okay, you also have to understand what is wrong view. Okay, so what is right view? Right view is understanding about cause and effect. It's understanding that beings are the owners of their actions, the heirs of their actions. They spring from the actions. That means you're born according to your karma. You're bound by your actions. For example, like your body. When you're born, your body is determined by your karma, so you're fixed by that. You can't escape from your body, and are supported by the actions. Whatever deeds we do, good or bad, of this, we shall inherit. That means only we reap the results. So ultimately, we are responsible for ourselves. No one else is responsible or in control of us. So right view means understanding the meaning of karma, wholesome karma, unwholesome karma, how we create that karma through our body, speech, and mind, and what are known as defilements of unwholesome karma, which is the three poisons: greed, anger or hatred or aversion, and delusion or ignorance. So that leads to unwholesome karma. Okay, so that's right view. So what's wrong view? Okay, there are five main generally there are five main wrong views, and these are very, very important because a lot of us have these views inherent in us. It's most of us just how you say, we don't pay attention to this, but we kind of assume this is what's going on. Okay, so what's the first right view? Satyaya Dristi, the view that there is a perduring self or soul. Okay. Number two, extreme views in permanence or annihilation. Number three, fallacious views, the denial of or disbelief in the efficacy of karma, rebirth, and cause and effect. Number four, a rigid attachment to views. That means you hold on to your views and you think that other people are right. You are right and other people are wrong. And then fighting happens. You know, if you look at the world, a lot of the world's problems or problems we create ourselves come from here. And then number five is the rigid attachment to the efficacy of rites and rituals. And this is very, very important because if you go to our monasteries, all you see most of the time are rituals, ceremonies. So to think that ceremonies have an efficacious nature is a wrong view. But at the same time, a lot of Mahayana practices come from ceremonies. So how do we resolve this, right? So that's why wrong views are very, very important to figure out. Let me see, how much time do we have? Oh, we have run out of time. Let me see. Maybe we will continue this explaining this 5 kinds of wrong views next week. In the meantime, just pay attention to these 5, okay? Especially number 5. Yeah. Why did the Buddha say that thinking that ceremonies, rituals have a thinking that they have an efficacious nature? That means once you get involved once you participate in a ceremony, you have done something good. Is a wrong view. Okay, maybe I'll close with this story. Okay, remember Venerable Dragon Pants, Chan Master Dragon Pants? Okay. So what happened was this. The emperor at the time, Emperor Wan Li, and this is connected to number 5 of the wrong view. So Emperor Wan Li, mother had died, and he wanted to hold a ceremony to cross over his mother. I don't have the full details. So he wanted to make sure that the monk who was going to perform the ceremony would be a special monk, not some run of the mill monk. So he had a plan. He took a copy of the Vajra Sutra and he buried it under a walkway, under a gateway. And all the monks that he invited to test them to see if they were good or not, he made them walk through this walkway. So all the monks that came through just crossed over the Vajra Sutra. They didn't even know that the Vajra Sutra was buried under the ground, except this Venerable Dragon Pants. Okay, Chan Master Dragon Pants stopped and he didn't want to cross further. Then the guards asked, "Oh, why do you stop?" And he said, "Oh, there's a sutra underneath." And he didn't want to walk across the sutra. So what did he do? He somersaulted. As he came to the sutra, he somersaulted, so the sutra would technically be above his head or below his head, but not under his head. as a sign of respect for the sutra. So the emperor heard about this, and then the emperor said, this must be a eminent monk. Okay. So it is said that the emperor tested him further by preparing a bath for him, but he was bathed by the emperor's concubines, and then to see if he would respond physically to women, but he did not. So when the concubines reported to the emperor that they had no effect on this chant master, the emperor was very, very impressed. So came the time for the ceremony, and all he requested was a very simple altar. I think just 1 or 2 fruits, maybe some incense, and he performed a very, very simple ceremony. And then he told the emperor, okay, your mother has been crossed over. And the emperor did not trust him. Why? Because we are used to very elaborate ceremonies. I am very, very sure, okay, including myself, if I was there, I would be like, how come you don't even chant the incense praise? You don't have the instruments, you don't have all the, the pomp and ceremony. Why is the altar so simple? You should have the 3 Buddhas there. You should have Shakyamuni Buddha, you have Amitabha Buddha, Medicine Master Buddha. You should have the 8 great bodhisattvas there as well. You should have banners, canopies. You must have flowers as offerings to the Buddhas, and just some fruits. No, not enough. You must have, a whole plates, and you go to a monastery on the 1st and 15th, you get the idea, where the emphasis is on the ceremony. And if you don't have all those, then something is not right. But after the emperor asked him, apparently the mother had been reborn in the heavens after the ceremony. Then he heard the mother's voice from the sky. He said, oh, no, he did a great job. He crossed me over. So the emperor was very happy. And that's how Chant Master Dragon Pants got his name, because the emperor said, how can I repay you? And he looked at the emperor's pants and he said, oh, you are wearing very nice pants. Maybe I'll have your pants. And only the emperor can have, I think, the symbol of the dragon embroidered on his clothes. So the emperor gave him his pants, and he became known as Chant Master Dragon Pants. Yeah. So Chant Master Dragon Pants didn't rely on, his ceremony was very, very simple, to the point that I think anyone from our present time, if you were to be there, you would probably have a lot of things to say about how not proper the ceremony was. So that's what the Buddha means: a rigid attachment attachment that things that makes you think that rites and rituals or ceremonies have an efficacious nature of itself. So how do we resolve that? Because that's what we do in the monasteries most of the time, right? Okay, so we'll keep that discussion for next week. All right. Okay, what word do I use instead of soul? No, you don't use any word. Yeah, there's no right word to use in place of soul, not in the Dharma, unless you come from a different belief system. Because the Buddha, if you ask the Buddha about a soul or a person, the Buddha would, the Buddha would rephrase your question. Yeah. I will also cover that next week. Like, for example, if you ask the Buddha, who is it that feels, or who is it that suffers, or who is it that gets reborn from life to life, the Buddha wouldn't answer your question. The Buddha instead will ask you back. He says, under what conditions does one experience suffering, or is there suffering? Then the Buddha will explain to you, it is contact. So the existence of what we think to be us is just a conditioned phenomena. It is not it's impermanent. Yeah, just like the female body of the example in the Vimalakirti Sutra. It's just a phenomena like dewdrops. The sutras use the examples of dewdrops or bubbles. It's very ephemeral. It just comes and goes. There's nothing to be. It's not permanent. There's nothing to be able to be to hold on to. Yeah, you can't take refuge in it. Yeah. Okay. So coming to Ron's another question. In Man and Woman, hear the Buddha's name from the Earth Star Sutra. The Buddha's name is boundless body, does come one. Those people who overstep the heavy offenses involved in birth and death for 40 eons. Can hearing the Buddha's name be hearing oneself read the name? Ron, I think we've covered this about hearing the Buddha's name. Hearing the Buddha's name is not merely just the sound, but it is understanding, is being able to understand enough to be mindful of the Buddha. Now we are doing mindfulness of the Dharma. Before this, we did mindfulness of the Buddha, like Nien 4, the Pure Land practice. So it's not just hearing the Buddha's name. It is hearing the Buddha's name is just a way of saying you understand what the Buddha represents. Then you are able to mold yourself in the form of the Buddha. So there's cause and effect. It's not magic. It's not just hearing, but that hearing involves a lot of other things. It's like that movie Avatar. Okay, you know Avatar with all that blue colored aliens. So in the movie Avatar, for those of you who have not seen Avatar, these aliens, when they see each other, they have a saying, "I see you." Okay, I see you, and then they put their hand, I think, on their chest or something like, "I see you." And it is not just saying "I see you," but it is that they recognize the person. They how you say, so it's not just seeing with your eyeballs seeing. Okay, it's like you recognize the person is there. There are elements of respect, there are elements of how you say, positive elements, you know. So that's what it means, like I see you. And that's just a made up movie. Okay, so in the sutras, when they say they hear the Buddha's name, it means you get close to the Buddha in the sense of you know where the Buddha is coming from. You know about the Buddha's past lives. You know about the great sacrifices of the Buddha, like how in the Lotus Sutra, the Bodhisattva, I can't remember his name now. The Bodhisattva says that he has followed Shakyamuni Buddha throughout Shakyamuni Buddha's past lives and seen all the great sacrifices throughout the great tricollial cosm. There were not even there is not even a single mustard seed of a place. Okay, I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I mean, where the Buddha has not given up his life. Okay, so that's what it means. So you can say that he has truly heard Shakyamuni Buddha's name. He knows Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, so he can emulate Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, so that's what it means when one says hearing the Buddha's name. Okay, so what does a thought of respect mean? Respect depends on which stage of the path that you're on, but ultimately the respect is you see that you can also be like Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, and that the fact that Shakyamuni Buddha has come to teach all of us how to be like him, there's a lot of reverence and respect there for the, how do you explain respect? I don't know. I have to think about it. Yeah, what does a thought of respect means? It means that you obviously how you say, see the person in a how do you say, in a higher, not higher form, in a, I don't know. Let me go look. Anyone knows how would you um explain respect? Yeah. And when
I
it
can
comes,
explain, Dharma Master.
yes, please, Saha. Thank you.
Respect means when you see someone as their ethics, their attitude towards life in general, is very good and ethical. That's why you respect that person. They're honest in everyday life. At least that's my way of meaning, like understanding it.
Very good. Yeah. So that's Saha answer. And then your final question, Ron, and does overstep heavy offenses means one's karmic retributions are wiped away? One thing we have to know, which is part of right view, understanding karma, is that karma is also condition. Karma is within the condition realm, and that means that when you pass beyond, when you the condition realm, your relationship with karma changes. Of course, there are things to consider. For example, how come the Buddha still had his headache? He still had to undergo karma. That was because the Buddha had a I had a physical body in the conditioned world, so it's still subject to cause and effect. But the Buddha's reaction to the discomfort was very, very different to say if it were to happen to us. And we covered this in the sutra called the Salt Crystal Sutta, where since we cannot change the karma, that if we are still subject to cause and effect, and since we cannot change the past karmic seeds that we have planted, the only thing we can change is our level of practice, our level of loving kindness, our level of patience, our level of tolerance towards suffering, not enduring suffering for suffering's sake, but understanding where suffering comes from. Then when we undergo hardship, it does not translate to suffering. Okay, so that's one way of understanding heavy offenses and how karmic retributions can be wiped away. You have to understand the context for saying that. So if you haven't, if you're still in the realm, in the conditioned realm, karmic offenses can affect you differently if you practice well. You're no longer bothered or as bothered by them depending on your level of practice. The more you practice, the less your suffering will be. That's one way. The second way of understanding that is when you get, say, enlightened, okay, when you move out of the conditioned realm, then there is no one, basically there is no one for the karma to affect because there's no self anymore. There's no mistaken self anymore. All right. So that comes from the Two Dat Sutta, where the Buddha says, or the Dat Sutta, where the Buddha says, no, and I'm just mentioning this because I covered this before also, where the Buddha says a run of the mill person, when we get affected by our karma, which is old age, sickness, death, or someone scolds you or slaps you in the face, from that first dat, we create a lot of subsequent dats because we make ourselves unhappy. We complain, we question God, why these things happen to us. We cannot accept what we get in life. Every thought that we have against all these things just brings us more suffering. So those are subsequent dats. But the noble one, meaning if you are stream enterer and above, if you are sage, after the first dat, because of right view, they understand how things work. Their mind does not create further false thinking. So they don't create additional suffering for themselves. All right? Okay. So, I have gone over 15 minutes. I thought it was just 5 minutes. I was kind of talking with my eyes closed. Okay. So no more questions, Ron. You keep that for next week. And now we will transfer merit. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. My apologies for overshooting again. Okay, everyone ready? All right. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, This world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Realm Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay everyone, Amitofo, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.